I mentioned, you were three local women who met at your kids' school, and you've launched this petition. What was the drive?
I think, like what you were just saying about grief, how in many cultures it's celebrated or it's acknowledged. So, within the Jewish community, there's 10 days or 5 days, 7 days of grieving, where people come and talk about death, talk about the person, how they died. Same within the Hindu tradition, and yet we're given 2 days paid bereavement leave in our culture.
Yeah, that was the sort of driver behind the petition, was to bring that to people's attention, to make them really aware of what their sort of entitlements were at that time. That time's a very vulnerable time for people, and they often can't sort of speak up to their bosses or to their workplace and say, I feel this way or that way, because they are struggling with just really like lots of things, just even coming, and they're in shock, sadness, anger. That's our sort of motivation behind the petition. But as a group, we came together just out of a desire to put something out into the community, and we just really like hanging out together, and that's how it started. Going for coffee and stuff, and we. And Sam said, I have some ideas, but I don't know how to make them real. And I said, well, I can build you a website.
They discovered that Lauren was a digital media marketing person. Oh, that's kind of a good fit. But I think also, when you have been touched by death, it permeates through your whole life. It sits there on some level and shapes you, and we talk about our birth stories. We plan our births, but we don't talk about our death stories, and we're just starting to plan our deaths, and so that's really fundamentally where it came from. And
was that through a personal experience?
Well, my dad died when I was 18, and I had quite a lot of death. I've experienced quite a lot of friends dying. Being the age I am, I had a couple of friends die of AIDS, and it's touched my life, and I know how it's influenced that, and so and I think if we can talk about it in a way of that it's not a taboo, and that's again brings us back to the petition, is that when we don't
acknowledge that time and space,
and you only have literally 2 days, and so what that does, and this is where talking about it is probably maybe not the number one driver, but the celebration of someone's life. So if you have 2 days, what I visualize is somebody passes away, the first thing that people do is call an ambulance. And then once the ambulance comes, that person's gone.
That's
essentially,
right.
In most cultures, it's time to sit down, make a cup of tea, spend that 6 hours, or even if you get the opportunity to dress that person in your own home, it's going to take more than 2 days for some people to be able to go through that. You know, so I think you lose that person once you call the ambulance, but that's all we're taught, aren't we?
Absolutely,
to just get somebody there.
And that's, I don't know if you know, today is actually Dying to Know Day.
I did, yes, it is Dying to Know Day today,
This is around all educating and talking about death and end of life, and where, there is a movement with death doulas and keeping the body in the home a bit longer, and that helps with the grieving process.
Oh, for sure.
So with the petition, 2 days, people are, employers are actually on board a lot more than we kind of feel like the national employment standards and the government have to catch up, because people will take sick leave and carers leave if they've got it, they haven't already used it.
But then they're using that, aren't they, as something separate to what your petition is all about.
That's right, and then people come back to work and they go, oh, how was your holiday? It's like, oh, I actually buried my husband. And so it creates a stigma, it creates this kind of a taboo around it. So that's kind of what we want to change. And our petition is actually for 10 days bereavement leave, which gives 2 weeks. And of course, not everyone's going to take that. Some people want to get back to work, and that can be a really great structure for them to get on with life. But if they're given those 10 days and we call it bereavement leave,
Yeah.
then people are like, we create more death literacy in the workplace.
Yeah. And I guess, they talk about workplaces being a team and an environment where you should be happy to go to. What you're trying to then create is maybe a more compassionate society that can be able to tackle those issues.
That's really
and some of the qualitative data, like we've got a survey on our website now for people who've experienced a bereavement while at work, and some of that feedback has been that they've been able to take time, but then when they come back to work, there's a lot more work that's built up there, so their workload is really heavy. People think once they've taken the leave, like so they've taken their 2 days bereavement leave and they've come back, then they're gonna be able to move on. And since other people say, well, I came back to work after I had my compassionate leave, etc., but 3 months later, I was a mess.
And that's where that sort of additional 12 weeks extended bereavement leave.
Yeah, that's
is
what we're
where
asking
you're
for
asking
in the
for.
petition too,
Yeah.
and that's for extenuating circumstances. So that would be signed off by a GP or a psychologist.
Yeah,
recommended.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and so I mean, you mentioned that a lot of the employers are on board. Where's this feedback coming from? Is it purely just from the surveys on the website or meetings you're having at organisations?
We have spoken to people who've had good experiences with their employers. So their employers have made space for them to leave the workplace for a while and then come back. There's a lot more businesses that are thinking about their bereavement leave for the employee rights. So they are working towards that. In the next few weeks, there's a discussion that Sam's going to with some corporate partners that are interested in extending their bereavement leave and talking to their
I guess employees or even and I'm not plugging any of these businesses, but if you hear somebody, let's say like maybe BHP or Telstra or one of the big banks getting on board, it starts to shift the narrative because we know that the smaller organisations tend to be the first to get on board.
That's right. Well, I think it's Optus has 5 days.
Okay, and that's a start, isn't it?
Some of them in their agreements have got longer, and Facebook brought in 20 days. 20 days paid bereavement leave just recently because one of their executives lost her husband unexpectedly, and that's unfortunately where the change happens. Often is when people have had an experience themselves, because people don't think about bereavement until it happens.
No, well, and you mentioned that it's hidden. The conversation is hidden, and like even you avoid a colleague when you know that they've lost somebody in the workplace.
Exactly, and that's another point with naming it as bereavement leave, so that then people can get together in the coffee room and go, oh, Jane's coming back, she lost her husband, what are we going to talk about, so that everyone is on board and able to share that ideas on how to handle that.
I just wanted to mention that Groundswell, who are a Sydney-based organisation, have been instrumental in communicating with employers about bereavement leave and how they should structure their workplaces better. And they're a group that we've been working with as well, and they're helping.
They run
Don't
Day.
Okay, and that whole idea, and then it falls into, in organisation speak, change management, which it is a change that well, we live in different times, people talk about their lives being really, really fast, but when somebody experiences a death or bereavement, it slows down pretty quick, and so we have to all have the skills to be able to work with that person and work together.
And Dean, I just wanted to add one more thing around the bereavement leave, that it's also for, because if you work part-time, you are entitled to, or casually, sorry, if you're casual, which is 24% of the population at the moment in Australia, you you're entitled to 2 days, but you don't have any other leave. So for me particularly, that's a real passion of this, that I want those 10 days available to casual employers
as well.
because you know, having to go back to work too early, we know that has really detrimental effects financially down the track.
And today, as you mentioned, is Dying to Know Day, which pretty much it's all about making sure that you can activate conversations and curiosity and build that deaf literacy that we've just been talking about, and grow that capacity of individuals, obviously, and community groups to take action towards that.
Yeah, it's having that conversation with someone about what they want to happen in that event.
Yeah.
And making plans, thinking about organ donation, and having a cup of tea and just talking about the sort of fact of it.
And it's interesting, well, I hate using that word. When I've been listening to some of this, I think it's one of the funeral homes who that's their advertising campaign at the moment. The couples in there, they're choosing the flowers, they're choosing what type of a casket they're going to go in, and it's sort of, it's when you hear it, you think, oh, why are they doing that? But that's the reality of life. We're all, we talk about birth stories, great, but we're all going that way at some point, whether it's quicker for some or later for others. That conversation has to be had at some point.
Absolutely.
And I didn't get the website for Dying to Know. I did see that, but you've got a Facebook page /Memoleaves. You've got a Twitter account, an Instagram account, and your website and your website is called Memo, as in MEMO, and Leaves, as in LEAVES.com.
Yeah, it's like the changing leaves.
Yeah.
And an important note.
Yes. /bereavement leave. And the idea really, and the campaign, is all about asking the federal government to extend bereavement leave under the National Employment Standards to 10 days from the current 2.
We are launching it this Friday.
Yes.
At Lonergan and Raven Funerals in Clifton Hill. Saturday.
Yes. 187 Queen's Parade, Clifton Hill.
3 o'clock. Yeah.
And it's all about giving every worker decent leave. So if you are in the area of Clifton Hill, 187 Queen's Parade.
Or if you're not.
And if you're not.
And we've got some choir singing, Sue Johnson's choir, and we've got Justin
Sless, comedian.
And you can see I'm still stuck in there not talking about it. I'm like, if you're in the area. Look, this is where it's at.
Oh, we'd like to hear your experiences.
Yeah. Well, we used to own nursing homes, so I've seen and worked in them.
We'd be very interested.
No. Thank you very much, Sam and Lauren, and we've also got Yael here who's in the studio, but we really appreciate you coming into 3CR Breakfast to tell us a little bit about your fantastic initiative and campaign.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.